kind of a shambles. And so we're going to get into that. So a little bit of a spoiler, and I don't know if you can really say a spoiler for the Bible, but in our language, a little bit of a spoiler. It's going to start getting really bleak in Judges, okay? I mean really bleak. So just prepare for that. We're going to meet a couple more judges that are pretty decent, I would say, but really they're totally ineffective as far as the people turning back to the Lord and there being a time of peace and rest in the land. You know, that kind of language in the book of Judges. We're going to stop seeing that starting in this chapter. Say goodbye to there was rest in the land with Gideon, because that's going to be the end of it. After that, it's just miserable. If you're a nihilist, then you're going to love these chapters, all right? It's all about the end is near, and I just welcome it, right? All right, so before we go any further, let's open in prayer. I want to ask somebody to open us in prayer, okay? So I'm going to ask my friend Dave Bradar. Kelsey was freaked out for a second. Dave, would you pray for us?
Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight with thanksgiving in our hearts. Thank you for your word, for the time that we're able to gather together and learn about you and hopefully get closer to you, dear Lord. We thank you for the open doors of a church. And we just thank you for being there for us, taking care of us, giving us what we need. Help us here tonight, open our hearts, open our eyes and ears to your good word tonight, dear Lord. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Dave. You guys, if you don't know, and you guys should all know, Dave Bradar is one of our Sunday school teachers. If you have not checked out one of our Sunday school classes Sunday mornings at 9 a.m., you should really check those out. That being said, we're going to see some new stuff coming up here September, Deanne. We're going to have I think we're going to have a bunch of choices are going to start popping up here. So we're so used to doing the quarterly that comes from our publishing house, the Foundry. And that will be, I think, one of 3, if not 4, opportunities that you will have on Sunday morning at that 9 a.m. time. So, a little bit of news. Where's Pastor Ed? Pastor Ed's not here. So we can spoil it all we want, right? There's going to be options. Oh, yes, ma'am. Okay. He's my favorite person. Let me get my mind straight here. Andrew Bonar says this. You've got it right in your notes if you have your notes in front of you. He says this: let us be watchful after the victory as before the battle. Let's remember that. Let us be watchful after the victory as before the battle. Because if you think about it, when are we usually at our most vulnerable? It's right after a great victory. We know, I have grown up with this idea, and it's called this. It's called the Elijah effect. And think of Elijah on top of Mount Carmel, and he's confronting the prophets of Baal, right? Baal, and he has this great victory over them. Do you know what immediately happens as soon as that victory is done? He goes on the run for his life. And he lands at a place he's hiding. He's living in a cave. He's not taking care of himself. So God sends these ravens to bring him food. And he goes through this major bout of depression immediately after a great victory. This was written one time in an article for me as I was a youth pastor at the time. And it was written for pastors saying, beware the Elijah effect. And I can tell you, it's very real. You would come back from, an amazing senior high camp or a mission trip. Sue, you're right in that zone right now. You have this amazing experience, and you come back, you settle in, and all of a sudden, you're battling. You're suffering with either depression, or you're going through something where it feels like the enemy is kind of attacking that experience that you had, looking for weakness in that. We're going to see that and how that plays out here for Gideon. How does he do in his moment after a great victory? Does he hold up? Does he fold under pressure? Does he make mistakes? Does he correct his mistakes? Let's find out as we get into the text here. It says this in chapter 8, verse 1. The men of Ephraim said to him, "What is this that you have done to us, not to call us when you went to fight against Midian?" And they accused him fiercely. Okay, a little bit of context. Who are the players that we're talking about here? We're going to test a little bit of your Bible knowledge. Ephraim is what relationship? They are a tribe of the Israelites. Are they one of the original 12 tribes? Or are they an expansion team? They're an expansion team. That's good. Okay. They're an expansion team. They're not one of the OG 12. They have taken the place of one of the original 12. Whose place and who is Ephraim? Tell me that. Joseph's son. Okay? And Joseph had 2 sons born in Egypt. They're half Egyptians. Ephraim is one of them. Who's the other? Manasseh. Manasseh, right? Manasseh is special because half of the tribe of Manasseh, before crossing over the Jordan, said, "We love this side on the other side of the Jordan, on the east side. Why don't we just raise our cattle here? This is great for cattle." And so from here on out, we hear of the half tribe of Manasseh because half of them are on one side of the Jordan, half are on the other. You have your western and your eastern Manasseh tribes. So 2 brothers, Manasseh and Ephraim, both of them sons of Joseph. Why is Joseph special in the biblical narrative? You guys, why is Joseph special? Who is his mom? What is his birth order? What's that? Firstborn of Rachel. And so his dad had 2 wives. He got tricked into marrying the first wife, Leah, right? Leah was known because she had this attribute about her. How is she described in the Bible? And it's really unfortunate. She deserves better. Weak eyes. She had weak eyes. We don't know exactly what that idiom means, whether she wasn't a beauty to behold, or maybe there was something wrong with her. All we know was she wasn't Jacob's first choice, right? But his first choice is Rachel. And so he eventually marries Rachel, who he's really in love with, and his firstborn is Joseph. He lets everybody know it. The rest of his brothers, his 11 brothers, kind of, except for Benjamin, the rest of his brothers despise him for it, right? They get rid of him. They fake his death. They sell him off. He grows up in Egypt. He has 2 sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. 2 of the brothers, the original brothers, who are the 2 who basically wasted or lost their spot at receiving a full blessing from their father? Simeon? Yep, Reuben and Simeon. If you're going to say them in order, it's Reuben and Simeon. Reuben slept with his father's handmaid, which discredited him right there. Simeon had a lot of blood on his hands, right? And that's basically what it tells us. Had a lot of blood on his hands. If you think back to the story of Dinah, is that right? Okay. Avenging Dinah, their sister, had a lot of blood on his hands. So Joseph's 2 sons get adopted. Actually, they're no longer grandsons to Jacob. They are now adopted sons to him, and he blesses them and gives them land. So they have a right to the promised land as well. Gideon comes from the tribe of Manasseh, and now his brother tribe, Ephraim, they are crying out and complaining, why weren't we called as soon as this battle was going to happen, or even in the planning stage? They're fussing over it. Now, to remember here, Ephraim had already stepped up. Let me see, I want to make sure that this is right. We're going to skip over some stats that basically just tell, even in our modern times, in modern war, that there are still after effects from the war. And there's some statistics on the amount of landmines still existing in some countries after great wars, and just what a danger that is. Once the war has finished, what are the people left with? But here, Ephraim, they're a proud people. They are the second largest tribe. They're second only to Judah. And Ephraim is insulted because they're not called to battle initially as they had been with Ehud and then with Deborah and Barak. So two former judges, Deborah and Ehud, they answered the call and went to battle right away. They're wondering, why weren't we called right away? So let me ask you, what could be some of the stumbling blocks if Ephraim had been invited earlier to the party rather than later? What could be some of the stumbling blocks that they're encountering? Who is Gideon? What is his job? Is he a mighty warrior? No. To his tribe, he is a farmer, right? He is a farmer. Okay, so who is calling you into battle? Is it a mighty warrior? No, it's a farmer who's calling you to battle. That, and then consider this. When God is winnowing down, when he's paring down and making Gideon's army small, if Ephraim would have been there during that, what do you suppose their reaction would be as Gideon is getting rid of men from his army? Right? What if he's getting rid of Ephraim, the tribe of Ephraim, right? So maybe it's good they weren't brought in early because they couldn't handle this process that God wanted to have happen, where he only wanted 300 people to make up this army. So now we see that how they are encountering Gideon, they are putting themselves in a vulnerable position because Gideon has popularity on his side, right? His legend is kind of spreading, and even the enemy has heard his name. So in this moment, when they're starting to gripe and complain and they have a bone to pick, how could Gideon respond if he wanted to? What do you think? How would you respond if you just came off of a great victory with only 300 men and you were encountering 135,000 men? How would you behave if somebody else was calling you after the fact, saying, why didn't you invite me? Would you be patient, or would you have words to say? Think about that. Now, here's what the Bible has to tell us. Proverbs 15:1 says, a soft answer turneth away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger. And we see that this is the tactic that Gideon goes with instead. Verse 2 says, and he said to them, what have I done now in comparison with you? Is not the gleaning of the grapes of Ephraim better than the grape harvest of Abiezer? So he gives a compliment to them. Okay, he could call them out and say, listen, by my great works, you will be judged. And if you want to get in line for the next whooping I'm about to give, then get in line, right? That's what Amanda Berdar wants to say. Get in line because I'm handing them out right now. But he doesn't say that. He says, you guys are amazing. Why would you even worry about being compared with my tribe and what we've done? You guys are much more spectacular. Look what you did. Now, what did the tribe of Ephraim just do in the previous chapter? Who did they capture and kill? Two what? Princes, right? Two princes of Midian. Okay. Two princes of Midian, and you have, what are their names? Do you guys remember? Oreb and Zeb, right? Meaning the raven and the wolf. So these are mighty warriors that they killed. They chopped off their heads and brought them back. Okay. I love this. This comes from Benjamin Franklin in his Poor Richard's Almanac. Take this remark from Poor Richard, poor and lame. Whatever's begun in anger ends in shame. And then this other one, I love this, and I put it in larger letters because this is really, if you want to take a quote home with you tonight, other than the Bible, listen to this one. There is no limit to what a man or a woman can accomplish if he, and I would add, or she doesn't care who gets the credit. Right? There's no limit to what you can accomplish if you don't care who gets the credit. Ronald Reagan. So, later we're going to see this. Ephraim is going to have pride again with another judge. It's going to be Jephthah. And here's the bad news for Ephraim. It's not going to go nearly as well as it did with Gideon. Jephthah is going to have no tolerance for it. All right? And so we're going to see Ephraim's pride is going to get them in trouble. Verse 4 continues, and it says, And Gideon came to the Jordan and crossed over, he and the 300 men who were with him, exhausted yet pursuing. Okay, remember that last phrase, exhausted yet pursuing. They're crossing over the Jordan. This is known as, and you'll see this sometimes, I mean, you have to read the books that I read. Tracy, you'll read these books in school books, and it'll say Transjordan. And Transjordan just simply means on the other side of the Jordan, crossing over the Jordan, okay? So Gideon's men are exhausted. They're pursuing these two kings of Midian, Zebah and Zalmunna, knowing that if they catch them, then effectively they have totally wiped out and disabled any remaining enemy, that nobody's coming back. So they cross over the Jordan eastward to Sukkoth and Gad, hoping to find some assistance. So let's see what they encounter there. Sukkoth is another neighboring tribe. This is an Israelite family. This is an Israelite group living on the other side of the Jordan. And so verse 5 says, So he said to the men of Sukkoth, Please give loaves of bread to the people who follow me, for they are exhausted, and I am pursuing after Zebah and Zalmunna, the kings of Midian. So note this, hospitality means everything in this culture, all right? It doesn't matter if, and I should say in this time, whether you were Israelite or Midianite, hospitality meant everything. If you had the welcome of the house, you were in fact supposed to welcome and treat strangers nicely. Invite them in, give them the best care and comfort. So he comes to people who are not strangers to them, they're fellow Israelites, and he asks for help, invoking rights of hospitality. So let's see what happens. Their response is this. Verse 6, And the officials of Sukkoth said, Are the hands of Zebah and Zalmunna already in your hand, that we should give bread to your army? What is their response, you guys? What is the response? Are they happy to offer assistance? Are they basically telling them to go pound sand? What are they saying? Go pound sand. I heard it somewhere. Yeah, right? So, what do you think? Let's play the devil's advocate here. Why would the people of Sukkoth, the officials, not openly welcome Gideon and his army of 300? What are they afraid of, do you suppose? If Gideon and his army are unsuccessful, what are the repercussions, right? Right? If you and your puny army are going after these two kings and we give you assistance and you fail, what's going to happen to us, right? Okay, in that sense, you can almost imagine this. As soon as they cross over to the Jordan, that sense of brotherly love between tribes goes away. In this area of the land, it's every man for themselves. Because these tribes that are there, these 2.5 Israelite tribes that are on the east side of the Jordan, they're fighting it out day and night for their survival because they're completely surrounded by foreign tribes. Unlike people on the west side of the Jordan who are surrounded by neighboring tribes, their fellow brothers. Okay, so Gideon is asking for help on spec, that is on speculation. I believe we're going to win this battle. Will you feed us? We're hungry and exhausted. They say no. So Gideon says, Well then, when the Lord has given Zebah and Zalmunna into my hand, I will flail your flesh with the thorns of the wilderness and with briars. That's nice. That's loving, right? There's nothing like a little good Christian disagreement, right? I will pop out your eyeballs with a spoon, and right, isn't that Robin Hood? I almost said Men in Tights. That's not Robin Hood. That's Prince of Thieves. I think Kevin Costner, the prince, what's that?
It's not eyeballs. He said he'll cut his heart out with a spoon.
Oh, his heart out with the spoon. Zeb, oh my goodness. Okay, you're Robin Hood. Hang on for Jephthah, because Jephthah is as close as the Bible gets to Robin Hood. We're going to see it. In fact, the artwork that you see is very much inspired by Robin Hood. But, okay, so that's what we're getting here from Gideon, right? I'm going to use the thorns and the briars, and I will flail. I will whip you until the skin is coming off of your body, is essentially what he says. Now, peace to you and have a good day. Okay. So from there he went up to Penuel, and he spoke to them in the same way. And the men of Penuel answered him as the men of Succoth had answered him. And he said to the men of Penuel, when I come again in peace, I will break down this tower. Okay? In the English, that doesn't translate very well. When I come back in peace, I'm going to destroy you. Have a wonderful day, right? Meaning once he is conquered, once he has restored peace to his land, he will come back and avenge those people who did not support him. So like them, like the town of Succoth, or the people of Succoth, they not only didn't help, but in fact, you could almost accuse them of aiding and abetting the foreigners, right? The invaders, the people who are taking advantage of the Israelites. You're aiding and abetting them. Verse 10, now Zebah and Zalmunna were in Karkor with their army, about 15,000 men, all who were left of the army of the people of the east. For there had fallen 120,000 men who drew the sword. So that is the carnage that we see that has come from this battle. Gideon and his 300, and then the resulting call to arms from everybody else once they had them on the run. Join in is what the call was, and he called people to help pursue them as they were fleeing. 120,000 people out of this army of 135,000 are completely wiped out. Now, looking at it, the numbers are still not great, right? 300 against 15,000. And Gideon went up by the way of the tent dwellers, east of Nobah and Jogbehah, and attacked the army, for the army felt secure. We'll get back to that word secure, okay? And Zebah and Zalmunna fled, and he pursued them and captured the two kings of Midian, Zebah and Zalmunna, and he threw all the army into a panic. And so that word secure in the Hebrew, it's this word, it's bitak. Bitak, and it means this: they felt assured, they had confidence, they were without care. They were without care. This word, Jogbehah, it means this in the Hebrew. It means to be high or lofty. This is where they were hiding out. So they were hiding out, you would say, in a high position, in a lofty position. Think of a mountain fortress, right? And we know historically, if you try and go up against a mountain fortress, you're not going to flush the people out of there. You're going to have to wait them out, right? And so when these two kings of Midian get to this location, they feel bitak. We feel confident. They're boldly assured. But in that Hebrew word, there is a hint of false confidence. You're a little bit too confident, is what this word means, okay? And so we see that, and we don't get the full story, what happened here in this encounter, but we know that these two kings, they're now in fear of their lives, and they're on the run, which is probably the last thing they want to do, is flee this lofty place where they've been holed up. Okay, verse 13, and then Gideon the son of Joash returned from the battle by the ascent of Horez, And he captured a young man of Succoth and questioned him. And he wrote down for him the officials and elders of Succoth, 77 men. Do you want to be on this list of 77 men? No. No. What is this list effectively? What would we call this kind of list? It's a what list? What? It's a hit list. It's a hit list. 77 men. Okay, 77. For those of you guys who are following biblical numerology, 77 means what to us in numbers? It's perfect or complete, right? And this is doubling down on complete. This is 2 sevens. So this is a complete list of everybody who is in on that decision not to help them out. All right, so he finds this young boy. This young boy, I can imagine his thoughts when he's writing down this list. Oh boy, every name I put on here, this is like the anti-Schindler's List, right? Everybody on this list is going to die. They're not going to get saved.
Too soon.
What's that?
Too soon.
Was it too soon? Too soon for Schindler's List? Oh my goodness. Okay, moving on. Will Melody just go back 15 seconds and re-record? All right. And he came to the men of Succoth, and he said, Behold Zebah and Zalmunna, about whom you taunted me, saying, Are the hands of Zebah and Zalmunna already in your hand, that we should give bread to your men who are exhausted? So he shows the 2 kings. These are the people you didn't think I could get. Can you imagine the heart falling out, right? Your stomach would just about hit the floor seeing those guys. Oh boy, I think we picked the wrong side. This is the anti-Rahab, right? This is somebody who doesn't realize that God is moving and you better get on God's side. Instead, they're looking with earthly eyes and they're seeing just the numbers and they're playing the numbers game only. Verse 16, and he took the elders of the city and he took thorns of the wilderness and briars, and with them he yada the men of Succoth a lesson. He taught them is how that gets translated. It says in the Hebrew, he made them to know on an intimate level his fury and his disgruntledness. Okay? On a deep, deep level, he made them know exactly what they had done. I don't know if they're walking away from that. Verse 17, and he broke down the tower of Penuel, and he killed the men of the city. What good was it for Gideon and his men to risk their lives to deliver Israel if they had traitors in their own midst, right? So they had to flush out the traitors. That is probably Gideon's thinking. Is anything hitting you right now about Gideon's story or the way that he's conducting himself? Are there any warning flags, any klaxons going off for you? Where is the direction coming from? Yeah, where is the direction coming from? Right? Who is guiding you, Gideon? Because pretty much right now, it sounds like you have gone, wow, can I say this? You've gone full, Jim, can I say you've gone full John Wick? Am I allowed to say that in a Bible study? Okay. All right. So Gideon has gone full Avenger on them. Ask yourself, where is the heart that is seeking God for direction? Because right now it seems like somebody is on a warpath, right? That's what it seems like. Let's just bear that in mind. Okay, verse 18. Then he said to Zebah and Zalmunna, we're going to get some information that we did not have about Gideon when we found him in the winepress, dug out in the ground, and he's threshing wheat. Remember when the angel of the Lord comes to him and says, O mighty man of valor? he's hiding because he knows that this army of 135,000 is about to descend upon them because they come once a year like locusts. And so he's hiding and he's threshing wheat. There's backstory. What drove him to hide here in the winepress in fear for his life? He says, where are the men whom you killed at Tabor? Okay, this is new. What is he talking about? We don't know exactly what this reference is. Not specifically. We don't know if this was an incident that was very close at hand at the time where he's threshing wheat, or if this was a year or 2 years or years down the road. We don't know when this is. But there was an incident that happened in Tabor. Where are the men whom you killed at Tabor? And they answered, as you are, so were they. Every one of them resembled the son of a king. So the two Midianite kings are trying to butter him up a little bit. They looked like you. They were very kingly people. They were very regal, very mighty, right? So what this verse is telling us is that Gideon is identifying these two kings as the people responsible for these people who died. We're going to get it here in verse 19. I'm just going to come back to it, but there's this weird, it feels like clunky. Like you just read this sentence and you're like, what are we talking about here? Where did this come from? What about those two men you killed at Tabor? Tell me about them. Where did that come from in the story? We've not heard that anywhere yet. But now this is the accusation he's leveling at them. And what he's doing is he is building up for us to kind of see a little bit. And this is what I want you guys to focus on, because we're going to play a little bit of a take this role and take that role. And those are two opposing roles, okay? So think about it this way. He is establishing himself right now as a Hebrew Goel, a Goel. What is a Goel, if you remember that in Hebrew culture? They have a specific family role. What is the Goel responsible for? The blood avenger. Okay, who is the blood avenger? They're the next of kin. They're a brother or next of kin, right? The immediate next family member. And what are they responsible for if something were to happen? For avenging somebody, right? You guys know this because the Goel would then chase the accused until they either killed them or the accused found a what? A city of refuge. And they were given access to the city of refuge, right? You had to convince the elders in the town that there was a case that you have innocence, and then they would let you in. And you were granted safety until that high priest who allowed you access, or who basically approved, and there's one high priest in all of the tribes of 12. There's one high priest at that time, and you would have to live in that city of refuge for the duration of that high priest's life. Now, as soon as that high priest dies, what happens to the accused person? You're free to go. You're cleared of your charges. You're cleared of your guilt. Jessica, is this a type for something? Is this a type for Jesus Christ? Is he our high priest? Do you think his death purchased anything for you and I? It removed our guilt, right? Not only is he our city of refuge, he's our high priest as well. Yeah, Madonna.
Tabor comes up, and that's where Barak and Deborah.
Yes. Here, let's hear your voice so we can hear this question.
Okay, so this is Mount Tabor, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
it seems like it comes up an awful lot, and you're drawing the conclusion, fast forward to Jesus, and at Mount Tabor you had Barak and Deborah were chasing the Canaanites, but that's where the transfiguration occurred too, on Mount Tabor, correct?
Madonna, you're hitting it. You're hitting it right now, that these places all have historical background, right?
Well, yeah, but that one comes up often.
Yes,
I mean,
Tabor
all
does.
these things, major occurrences.
Tabor does. We can see Mount Megiddo has. Even Shechem. Shechem is that city that lies in between the hills of blessing and cursing, right? And you're going to see them. And because we're not talking about, at the end of the day, we're not talking about a huge, giant region like we're talking about the United States, right? In comparison, this is rather small. So these places do pop up time and again. And you see it in the Gospels, because even then, people are pointing out to places and saying, these rocks, right? When John the Baptist is baptizing at the Jordan, these rocks that our fathers established, who is he talking about? Well, he's talking about Joshua setting up this altar, right? And these places are all around. But I'm glad that you got the Tabor connection, that this is an important place, or this is a place historically that we're familiar with. Yeah. Thank you, Madonna. All right, you guys, so let's see what's going on here. I put this in here today, and I added this, and this was from the New International Commentary, the NICOT, and the NICOT takes this view, and it wants us to think about it this way. The one stance is you can view Gideon as rightfully being a Goel, an avenger of blood. But let's look to see what the New International Commentary, Barry Webb, who wrote that commentary, has to say. And he says that this Goel has the right and duty to punish the killer. However, there are three big reasons to consider why this may not be a legitimate blood-avenging situation. Now, for those of you guys who don't know, we do have a resident lawyer in our group here. And in fact, it's one of our pastors, Pastor Ed. His mind works with that legal mindset. And so it'll be interesting to hear what his thoughts are on this. So is Gideon really in the right as Goel, or is he in the right as something else? So he has a couple of things against him. One, war versus murder. The blood avenger laws were made for everyday crimes in a peaceful community, not for people killed during war. So, are the Midianites living peacefully among the Israelites, or are they invaders at war? Right? Number two, a personal revenge, not God's war. God commanded Gideon's initial battle, but after this in chapter 8, God isn't mentioned as guiding Gideon anymore. Where is this direction coming from to take these actions? Gideon is a little bit unhinged right now. He's going too far. Gideon is also brutally punishing the Israelite towns of Sukkoth and Penuel just for refusing to feed his hungry men, showing that he is a bit out of control. He is driving his men to the point of what in pursuit? Exhaustion. He's driving his men to the point of exhaustion. So, there is a stance that says that Gideon is not rightfully acting as the Goel, as the blood avenger. That to say that the usual commentary that I use, Dr. Chuck Mishler, takes the side that this is an example of the blood avenger, of the Goel. That he had every right to go after them because they killed his brothers. And we're going to get that. I'm sorry I blew that here. Verse 19 said, and he said, they were my brothers, the sons of my mother. As the Lord lives, if you had saved them alive, I would not kill you. And so we'll pause there. So new information, whatever this is that happened at Tabor, the men that were killed, we know that some of the men were his brothers, his blood brothers. And so this is new information why we have Gideon hiding out in a wine press. So let me ask you guys, Amy?
God is not still on their side. How is he still winning with only 8,000 or 30? Because the last one that
Yes.
he's still winning.
I love it. Amy,
Why is God still,
that's a great point. So if we have columns that Gideon is in the right, that would be something in the Gideon is in the right for this. The Spirit of the Lord is still with him, right? You could make a case for that right now because he's still, with only 300 men, taking care of 15,000. Okay? So that is one side for he is enacting in his proper right. Okay? What else do you guys think? I don't think he's wrong in killing these two kings because they are at war, right? These are invaders coming into the promised land. So he has every right. Does he have the right as the Goel? That's the question. As the blood avenger. What else do you think? Marilyn, what do you think? Undecided? Okay, undecided. How many of you guys think, I'm undecided, I may not know enough, or I don't feel good making a decision either way? Just a couple. Okay. How many of you guys think that he had every right as the Goel, as the blood avenger, to kill these two kings? By a show of hands. Oh, okay. How many of you guys, Pastor Ed, you think he had every right as the Goel? Okay. How many of you guys think that he didn't have the right as the Goel, but he did have the right as a defender and a judge of Israel to kill the invaders? Okay. Pastor Ed, again, like a true lawyer, really? You can't be both plaintiff and defendant, can you? Yes. Okay, hold on one second. So I know nothing about law. We've established that. I know the word onus, and onus means burden. That's about all that I know. Okay, so I said it's not a plaintiff and a defendant case. What is this a case of?
Well, it seems to me like we're arguing over what's the justification for the killing.
Mm-hmm.
And so is it one law versus another law, or is it actually he has the right under both laws?
And you think he has the right under both laws?
Yeah, I think so. I think these were his brothers. They admitted to the killing, and so he has every right to kill them.
Okay.
In fact, they admit, just go ahead and kill us.
by their own admission.
By their own admission. So
Okay.
I think he has the right from that perspective. I think also he was the warrior leader, if you will, the general, if you will, of the army. He has every right to kill the opposing army's kings under that law.
Yes. Under being a judge or being a leader of forces against an invader to the promised land, right?
Call it military justice.
Yeah, military. This is war. Yeah. Okay, I want to pick on two people at this table, Dave Berdar and Jim Thomas. Yeah, I'm sorry. You guys, what do you think? Is he not fully accurate as taking the role of Goel, but as judge, he has the full right?
Wow, okay. So, it doesn't really matter. I mean, I'm going back looking at it, and Numbers 35, when it's talking about this, it keeps using the word murderer, murderer, murderer.
Is war murder?
Yeah, is war murder? I think that's the question. I mean,
Because
he's saying
essentially,
it has a justification,
if you say that war is murder, then your sons and daughters that you send off to war come back murderers, right?
I mean, that's what I'm wondering about.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Dave, you had thoughts?
I think
These are two of our Sunday school teachers, you guys. So you guys are seeing which one of their classes you want to go to. No, please, no, it's not like that.
I think not only does he have the right, I think it's his duty as a Goel
Okay,
to take care of that, and he obviously has the right as a general.
as a general, he has both rights.
So I think it's more than a right.
And-
I think it's his duty
And it's his duty to do it. Okay.
to take care of business.
Yes, he's expected to do it. He's expected to do it. Yes, and I would tell you this. So I would say, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. Tracy Morris. Tracy is one of our students. She's going through our pastoral course of study in the Nazarene denomination. Tracy, this is one of those cases where it's okay to say you don't know. Yeah, I don't know myself. I would say the Nikot makes a lot of good points. This is war. This is not peacetime. This law wasn't written to be interpreted under this setting. This is a war setting. So he has every right under war setting. Not necessarily as Goel would be my heart in this, but at the end of the day, I would say if I had a professor and they said, no, he has every right because of this, I'd be like, yeah, you're right, right? Okay, that being said, he gives his son the chance. When you say it's your duty, right, you are honor bound to do this thing, he gives his son an opportunity to establish himself as a great person. Let's read about that and see what happens here. And so he says, they were my brothers, the sons of my mother. As the Lord lives, if you had saved them alive, I would not kill you. So he said to Jether, his firstborn, rise up and kill them. Now, we think this, that Jether might be a young boy. I don't know if that's necessarily accurate. I don't think Gideon is necessarily a young man. At the end of his age, and we're going to get to this, he has born sons, not daughters, sons in the number of 70. He has been around quite a while. More than just quite a while. He has been around. We'll just say that, okay? Okay, so Jether may not be a young boy, but he gives Jether this opportunity. But the young man did not draw his sword, for he was afraid because he was still a young man. Pastor Ed?
So let's go back to your argument just for a second, because this is important, and I didn't bring this up for a reason. I didn't bring this up for a reason. So it's a different question to ask of Gideon. Which law did you operate under? And this is evidence he did not operate under the Goel, because he asked somebody else to avenge.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So, but he did have the right as a military leader to command somebody else to make the killings.
100%.
So this is an argument. So, you know, the commentary is, we don't know. Under which did he operate? Likely the military role.
Yeah, yeah. The Nikot, Barry Webb is saying he didn't have the right as Goel, whereas Dr. Chuck Mishler is saying he did have the right as Goel. I just love it because you have, for me, these are my two favorite commentaries, and you have them conflicting, and I absolutely love that, right? Why are you guys conflicting? Okay, so he has his son. He invites his son to kill them, but his son doesn't want to because he's still a young man. Now, how a soldier died is very important to these people. We're going to get to Abimelech. The story of Abimelech is next, one of the sons of Gideon. And he didn't want to die at the hands of a woman. King Saul didn't want to fall into the hands of the Philistines. For a child to kill a king would be the ultimate humiliation. To have this young boy do it, this young man. All right? So Jether, if he would have done it, he would have brought honor on himself for the rest of his life. But he hesitated here. Okay. Then Zebah and Zalmunna said, rise yourself and fall upon us, for as the man is, so is his strength. Why are Zebah and Zalmunna saying, why don't you do it yourself? Why do you think they're going that route? It's more honor, but also you're not putting it into the hands of somebody who's never done it before to do it, right? I don't want to die like that. You don't know what you're doing? Please, at least know what you're doing if you're going to kill me, right? Let somebody who's battle experienced do it. That way I know I'm at least going to die quickly. Okay, and so he took and Gideon arose and killed Zebah and Zalmunna, and he took the crescent ornaments that were on the necks of their camels. That's weird, right? That's a weird, why would you throw that in? He killed them, and then he took the crescent ornaments that were on the necks of the camels. We're going to find out this is approximately 49 pounds of gold that he took in just these ornaments. It didn't talk about the chains. It just says the ornaments, these crescent shapes. So who are we dealing with? What is this crescent moon? When Abraham was called out of Ur of the Chaldees, the prevalent worship throughout the region was worship of the moon god. In Assyria, he is known as Sin. The name Sennacherib means sin, and not sin as in harmardia, right? Missing the mark or going against the known will of God. This is sin as a name, not as sin as we know it. And it means sin multiplies his brothers, Sennacherib. In Arabia, he is called Al-Ilah, which is later contracted to Allah. The crescent moon, Allah, Allah. Do we still see this crescent moon? Do we still see this moon god working today? What is the prevalent view of some of the practices and the way that this god conducts himself? Is it favorable? No. We know that there are many people who live in peace under this, but we know that it gives right to radicalism, right? And that God is still contending with these people. All right, we'll keep going here. The worship of Allah, the moon god, was the predecessor of Islam. The crescent moon still adorns every mosque throughout the Muslim world. So these Ishlamites, as they are called in verse 24, it means they are nomads, not necessarily traceable descendants of Ishmael. All right, Ishmael. These are Bedouins. And if they are coming from Abraham, they're not coming from Hagar, Ishmaelites. They're coming from his second wife, Keturah. All right? Okay, let's keep going. Verse 22, then the men of Israel said to Gideon, rule over us and your son and your grandson also, for you have saved us from the hand of Midian. So Gideon is so popular, they're saying, we want a dynasty. We want you to establish you and all of your sons over us, protect us. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One, it's that surely the hand of God is upon him, but also by establishing one person to be over all of them, it brings them protection. And this is going to be protection for a long time, because as we find out, Gideon has how many sons? 70 sons, right? So this would be, if you appointed him king, you would be dealing with the kings of Gideon.
If it says 70, is that an actual numerical reference, or is that just another one of these numerology things where you use the number 7?
That is a great question. That is a great question, Zeb. Is this an accurate, like who is actually tallying these, or is this the Bible writer's way of saying he has a full roster of men, a perfect, of sons, right? A perfect number. Not only that, but times 10, right, is what we're hearing, 7 times 10. That's a great question, and I would think it's one of those that you would say, and I would lead you in this direction. This is the direction I would take. You take it in faith and say it's 70 sons, okay? Could it be also that it's being used that way as well? Yes. That's definitely there. We pay attention to the numbers, right? But yeah, good question. How do you guys feel about that? At this time, yeah. Well, so we're going to see that that there's peace in the land for how many years? If you skip ahead. Peace in the land for... Kim, how many years is there peace in the land? 40. Yeah, there's 40, Kim. That's right, 40. 40 in the Bible usually means what? It's a time of testing, right? It's a time of testing, 40. They had peace for a time of testing. Okay, I wonder if they passed or failed the test. We'll find out. So, Maryland for 40 years until he died. So, I don't know. I used to know celebrities who were like in their 60s and famous artists. Was Pablo Picasso one of them? having sons and children when he's well into his 70s. This was probably one of those cases. I don't know if he had all 70 at this time. We know at the end of his life he had 70, okay? Okay. Yes. Okay. He was a farmer. I don't know. That was terrible. Okay, so they are setting up a dynasty. What they are actually doing, though, Pastor Ed, Sunday school teachers, Jim and Dave, when the people are asking for them to set up a dynasty under Gideon, what are the people actually declaring in that moment, though? Is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? It's a bad thing. You're rejecting God. Because who's supposed to be the leader of the Israelites? The invisible God, right? The people do not like an invisible God. They want a figurehead. Okay. It's interesting. They want Gideon to be, and they say this, they want him to be their leader because he saved them. That's their own words, because you saved us. Who actually saved Israel? God did. Then by that mindset, who should be their king? God should be their king. If we're going off of the person who saved you, right? So, Gideon and his army, they were just participants in something that God was already setting into motion. They're just going along for the ride. They're not really the difference maker here, right? God is the difference maker. To his credit, Gideon refuses. He refuses and he steps away. So, let's keep going here. There is a problem, though, because Gideon has created this situation for himself. Israel thought the person who rescued them should be their king, but God was just a tool, and he didn't stop them in that moment, or he wasn't conducting himself in that way to remember up to that point that God was giving them the victory the whole time. And then the way he's conducting himself, he's acting like a very bossy, in-control person. I'm going to enact my revenge. I will come back and get you guys for not jumping on board. He's acting like a king, right? He's acting like somebody in control. He should not be acting like somebody in control. We'll move on here. Verse 23, Gideon said to them, I will not rule over you, and my son will not rule over you, and the Lord will rule over you. We'll keep moving on here. Every Jew should know that who rules over them is God. We'll keep going here to verse 24. And Gideon said to them, let me make a request of you. Every one of you give me the earrings from his spoil, for they had golden earrings because they were Ishmaelites. And they answered, we will willingly give them. And they spread a cloak, and every man threw in the earrings of his spoil. And the weight of the golden earrings that was requested was 1,700 shekels of gold. That is 49 pounds. Besides the crescent ornaments and the pendants and the purple garments worn by the kings of Midian's, and besides the collars that were around the necks of the camels. So 49 pounds plus everything that's coming from Zebah and Zalmunna. And Gideon made an ephod of it and put it in his city in Ophrah. An ephod. You guys, those of you who know, what is an ephod? Dick, what is an ephod? Yeah, that's right. It's a priestly chest piece, right? It's a priestly chest piece, and it's full of all sorts of precious stones and gems, each one of them representing the 12 tribes of Israel. What else is located within that ephod as well? The Urim and Thummim, right? These are the black and the white stones. And why is that important? Why are those two pieces important to have in this chest piece? How do they get used? For discerning, right? For discerning. And what are they discerning? God's will. Yeah. God's will. God, what do you want us to do? They pull out these 2 stones. They'll put them in a bag. They'll pull one of the stones out. White means yes, black means no, right? And they get their answer. God wants us to do this. And those were all in part of this ephod, this priestly vest. It seems a lot, though, in this request, and you can almost see it kind of going the same way, and we should be hearing the little echoes. This almost sounds like Aaron collecting the jewelry from the Israelites when Moses and Joshua went up on Sinai, right? What did Aaron do with all the jewelry he collected? He made the golden calf. The golden calf then became a what? An idol. It was never meant to be good. In here, though, we could make a case for Gideon. Did he think he was doing something good? Because if he was looking at history, historically, this doesn't go well. When you collect jewelry and you boil it down and you make something new out of it and put it in front of the people, right? Okay, let's keep going here. We need to close out. Verse 29, Jerubbaal. Who are we talking about now? Jerubbaal. Still Gideon, right? This is his nickname, which means antagonizer of Baal, of Baal. Then Jerubbaal, the son of Joash, went and lived in his own house. Now Gideon had 70 sons, his own offspring, for he had many wives. Okay, you guys know this. Is that ever a good statement in the Bible? He had many wives. No, Lydia, you are right. No, it never works out well for people who have multiple wives. Okay? All right, let's keep going and we'll close out. And his concubine who was in Shechem, remember the hill of blessing and the hill of cursing, and it makes this natural amphitheater, and there's a town right below that in this amphitheater, and that town is known as Shechem. So his concubine who was in Shechem also bore him a son, and he called his name Abimelech. And Gideon, the son of Joash, died in a good old age and was buried in the tomb of Joash his father at Ophrah of the Abiezrites. As soon as Gideon died, the people of Israel turned again and whored after the Baals and made Baal-berith their god. And the people of Israel did not remember the Lord their God, who had delivered them from the hand of all their enemies on every side. And they did not show steadfast love to the family of Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, in return for all the good that he had done to Israel. That brings us to the end of Judges chapter 8. Chapter 9, we will get into Abimelech's story here. Not a judge. Pastor Melody, do you have that slide for chapter 9? Or would it be you would have to do some work to get it up? No? Okay. So this is who we're dealing with. Abimelech, the bramble king, is what he gets referred to. You'll see that on the opposite side. Now, you guys, I would say this. Don't necessarily fall in love with that QR code for that, because you infamously know that however many weeks of study you give me, I will keep adding and adding and adding every time I go over it. Okay? But that's who we're about to get into. Abimelech, he is not a judge, but he is referred to as the Bramble King, and we'll get into that in his sordid story. What questions, what are some highlights that you're seeing from Judges chapter 8? What stands out to you? Anything? Nicole, you look awfully pleased with yourself over there. You were going to get in a little bit of trouble? Oh, okay. All right. I'll move on. I know better than to pick on Amy. We'll ask anybody else. Amy, I'm not asking you, okay? Anybody else have any kind of highlights, anything that stood out to them in chapter 8? What do you think of Gideon? Is anything new about Gideon's story that came out in this study that you may not have focused on before or was never kind of fully thrown out there? You don't hear the full story in children's church, do you? The, the typology, yeah, the goel, yeah. Yeah. Did I skip Did I skip a verse? Oh my goodness. Okay, you guys, no wonder you guys were very like, I'm like, why are they flipping? Okay. Oh boy. Okay. Yeah, I skipped. I went from an all Israel horde after it there, and it became a snare to Gideon and his family. And then I skipped it, right? And so Midian was subdued before the people of Israel. I was thinking, we didn't hear how the land had rest for 40 years, right? And they raised their heads no more, and the land had rest for 40 years in the day of Gideon. Jerubbaal, the son of Joash, went and lived in his own house. Oh, I had skipped just verse 28.
I'm surprised he didn't take them on their, like, him being them be his king. Nope, I said that back. I'm surprised that he said, no, I don't want to be your king.
That
He walked away because he was all this power, 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 and look what I can do, look what I can do, look what I can do, and then he just walks away.
Yeah.
Which is very surprising.
Yeah. Yeah, Amy, I agree with you. He had every opportunity to,
Keep on going with what he was already doing.
yeah, to cash it in, right? Yeah, because he had a lot of,
Get whatever he wanted, like he could have went on for forever.
yeah. There's it's an Arabic term when you have that kind of collateral.
Like, I'm surprised he said, no, it's not me, and you're supposed to have God as your king.
Yes.
Like, I'm surprised he backed off and said that,
Yeah.
because he wasn't really following God.
Makes me think that he wasn't actually power hungry.
He wasn't power hungry.
And
Yeah.
even when he like disciplined those people and it was like aggressive, he had said what he was going to do, and he just kept his word.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you could say that he keeps his word.
I think he had, and I think when we examine him and we say, is he truly behaving as the avenger of blood in the rightful sense, or is he on his own mission? I think we've established he had every right to do what he did, right? Not only was it his right, it was probably his duty, if not as the Goel, the blood avenger, it was his right as a judge of Israel, right, to eradicate and eliminate the invaders from being in the promised land. So,
God would have wanted him to get rid of those people. It was almost like God allowed this to be an extra blessing to him that he was able to get.
he was able to avenge his brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And ultimately, he is in the heroes of faith. He did secure, in that one answer, Amy, he secured his heavenly kingship, right? That he has a place to reign in heaven. Yeah. So, good. It's good that he didn't forfeit earthly for heavenly.
I mean, it's just good that they kind of like finalized what we were saying. Was he doing it for this or was he doing it for that?
Yeah.
Like you just said, like it kind of like puts it all together and saying, if he was doing it for his own victory, he would have took.
Okay. So one more case in the fact that he was operating within his right. He wasn't overreaching.
And the fact that God never walked away from him while he was battling.
Yeah, agreed. That would be a hard argument, right, to say God was no longer with him. God was very clearly with him, still delivering him, right?
And I don't know, like you put it in the notes, but I don't think we talked about it.
Yeah.
But when he made the ephod, it said like he did it to try to like he had good place to start. Right?
Yeah.
To honor God, but it was also because he wanted to use those things to be able to ask God instead of asking him. Like he was trying to take people's view off of him being the leader.
Yeah.
Turning it back to God.
It was almost trying to bring people back to the worship of God. The only bad thing in there, and we see it in the Bible all the time, is that people forget the Torah all the time throughout the history of the Bible. And so they actually don't realize that they're behaving wrongly or not Levitically, right? Because this wasn't his Levitical right to make an ephod. He should have never been touching this thing. He wasn't a priest, right? Yeah. Okay. We are just about at time. Are we good? All right, you guys. Next week we will have chapter 9, and then we're getting closer and closer to chapter 10. I absolutely love chapter 10, one of my favorite. We will stay on 2 verses for way too long, okay? I promise you, it will be wonderful. So, let's close in prayer, and we will dismiss. Our Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this night. Lord, what a gift your word is. Thank you for your word. Thank you that we get to see just how you move through our history, Lord. I pray this. The saying goes that history teaches us nothing, or that we don't look back and remember history. Father, I pray that that's not true for us, that we would look back and we would see the way that you have moved, that we would learn from it, and that we would know that we are not the persons that are in control. We are not the people in places of power. All that belongs to you. But you have invited us in to participate with you, and we praise you for that. We thank you, Lord. We thank you for this night. Lord, I thank you for this class. Just pray that you would bless us all as we dismiss. Amen.